Hi. Welcome once again to Conversations with Veronica. These are a little bit political, but not really political because I'm not a political animal. I thought you'd like to meet some of the people that want to be our next mayor. This young lady, I'm going to try so hard not to mess up her name, Liz Pedrini.
You got it.
Oh, thank you, God. Welcome to our world.
Thank you very much.
Why do you want to be mayor?
That's a great question. So I'll tell the shorter version of the story.
Okay.
My son, who is now a senior at Northeast Metro Tech in Wakefield, when he was in elementary school, was the type of child who just drop me off, don't volunteer, don't sign up for anything, just stay away.
Church and state are always separate.
I have a daughter now in elementary school who's the complete opposite. Before I can sign my name to anything, she's already told them I'll be there. So 2 years ago, I started volunteering at the library in her school.
Isn't it cool?
And my intention was just to do 1.5 hour a week, 1 day a week. That was it.
You didn't ask anybody.
And I was doing real estate at the time, and I was busy. And I had a very small one at home. I didn't know that the librarian was at her school every other week. And on the weeks the librarian wasn't there, volunteers had to sign up, and if volunteers didn't sign up, the kids didn't have library. So what I found was myself at her school multiple days a week for multiple hours a day, rescheduling home inspections, rescheduling appointments with clients so that these kids could have library.
Thank you.
Not exactly what I planned at the beginning, but I was mad. And I asked her on the day she was supposed to have music, how music went. And she didn't have music that day because the music teacher was at a different school because they had a concert coming up. Something else I didn't know. And so the more I started looking into things, the madder I got. And I started looking into other things.
Art?
Well, outside of the school system. Our police department and our fire department and DPW, and I started kind of branching out. And the more I looked into things, the more questions I had, the less happy I became with the way things were going. No?
No, they're hard to come by.
They are, and they shouldn't be. So the last election, when there was no other candidate running, after that I was kind of venting to my husband. And I said, this is ridiculous, things need to change. A, B, and C aren't fair, they're not right. And he jokingly said to me, why don't you run?
Husbands are wonderful, aren't they?
And that was November of 2017. And I knew that I have no political experience. People ask me that all the time. I don't. And I'm not gonna, make it.
In some ways, that's a good thing. You don't owe anybody anything.
That's correct. I don't owe anybody favors and no one owes me.
There you go.
And so I left my job in real estate in November of 2017 to commit to this campaign 200% because I knew I had homework to do. And so that's what I've been doing since.
And how much progress have you made?
A lot.
Good.
A lot. I feel that I'm very well prepared, that I'm very knowledgeable in the things that people are concerned about and want answers to. I started meeting last summer with union presidents and union members. I've spoken to multiple people in the community the past few weeks. Every time I get an email, it says, tell me more about yourself. I'll say, let's meet for coffee. So Panera knows me on like a first name basis now because I'm there multiple times, sometimes hours a day, just meeting people, talking. And I feel that's so much better than a large event.
Or in their home, sometimes they're a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
In a group of people, if you go to a friend's house and you're truly curious, and somebody from the other party sees you there,
right,
you're gone.
Yeah.
I can remember I was in a congratulatory photo for a friend. Oh boy, was I labeled. That lasted about a week until I unlabeled.
Yeah,
it's quick.
It is. And I knew somewhat what I was getting into.
No, you don't.
People said, well, if you've been planning this for years, I haven't seen you at a city council meeting, or I haven't seen you at a school committee meeting. I wasn't there, but I watched every single one.
And I'm the reason you did.
Thank you.
10 years I was behind that camera.
Really?
And if they said something that I didn't like, I moved the camera onto somebody else.
You had that power. But there was a reason that I wasn't there in person, and I didn't want the whispers to start. I didn't want anybody to even have the opportunity to label me or associate me with a certain group. So I just sat
Wise
back
choice.
and watched until I announced.
Did you understand much of it?
Well, see, that's the thing with watching, is you get to watch multiple times.
Does that help?
and rewind and kind of write things down and see if you can go back and find, and there's a lot of unanswered questions. There is. And,
And not enough people asking them. You can be alone in the storm, and they can try to ignore you.
But just because people don't ask doesn't mean they're not curious.
This is true.
A lot of
But
people.
they're also not brave.
True.
Veronica, thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. I've always wondered that. I said, why don't you come out on the edge of the limb with me? It gets a little lonely. Oh, I couldn't do that.
Right. That's one of the things that I've gotten is, emails or people saying to me personally, thank you for running. I thought about it, or I know someone who thought about it but never would, because they have no political experience, or because, they're afraid for various reasons.
I brought my nomination papers to an 85-year-old who had been married to a city employee, because I thought she'd be tickled to sign them. She almost had a heart attack.
Yeah.
She thought they'd take her pension away if they saw her name on it.
So that was something that I noticed when I walked around doing my nomination papers. So
That's sad.
I purposely, I could have got them all where I live, but I purposely ventured out. I went to North Woburn. I went everywhere, and knocked on doors and said who I was. And I had people saying, you have my support. I'm behind you, but I can't sign because I'm up for a promotion, or because my son works for the city, and it's not right.
No, and I remind them they work for me.
Right.
My husband worked for the city for 40 years. And when somebody would say, I pay your salary,
yeah.
and he'd say, what do you think, I live in a tent?
Yeah, my husband's a police sergeant in Arlington. So I've heard I pay your salary more than once in his stories. But, it's, people also say, well, if you had to pick your top three, what are your top three issues?
Traffic.
That's a big one.
They want a one-way street quiet until they have company or a moving
Right.
van coming in.
It's true. But, traffic is an issue.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Not just
It's
here.
not just here. It's an issue everywhere.
They're blaming it basically on the GPSs, because you can punch in alternate routes.
Yeah.
And that's why they're zipping up and down our...
Side streets.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a trick to that I'll
I have
tell you later.
GPS for dummies, and I
Yeah.
can't get out of Ohio.
I like Ohio.
Her husband reads maps, thank God.
But I would say my top three things. One is our schools are number one. Okay.
He doesn't have much say on the schools, but
People will say, well, if schools are so important to you, why didn't you run for school committee? I get that question a lot.
yeah,
Well, our schools need money. I can't get them that sitting on the school committee.
this is true.
Um,
But it doesn't mean it will be spent where you think the priority should be either.
Correct. And there's, we have some amazing people currently on the school committee, and some amazing people right now trying to get on. And I have full faith going forward that if, Ellen Crowley said it when she was actually on your show, that she has principals saying we need A, B, and C. They have the numbers and the data to show why this is needed. They have visions for their school. I would like to believe that we put principals and hire principals in that position because we trust them, because they're educated, because they know what they're doing. So if they're saying that they need A, B, and C, it's our responsibility to make sure they have it.
Unless the school needs a roof, or the stage needs a new curtain, or the fire extinguishers have to be replaced, you know.
Right.
They have priorities too, and they
Right.
can only depend. When they took the old high school down, they found storage rooms full of paper, full of supplies, and the principals knew about them. And they were saving them for the day that the school committee cut that budget. And you found that in almost every school that came down in Woburn, which is a crying shame.
Right.
Man, I'd have learned how to pick a lock if I knew those closets had, and so wouldn't the teachers.
Right. My mother was a teacher for 37 years in Chelsea. She was president of the teachers union for 10 years. So I grew up with that.
She had to buy the Kleenex, she had
Yeah.
to buy the bandages, yeah.
And it's not, everyone thinks, you know, these teachers have an 8 to 2 job and go home and they have summers off. They don't. It's a lifestyle.
I have a daughter in teachers in Tingsboro. She had 132 IEPs to read last night.
Yep, I believe it. I believe it. Yep. And, you know, you'll hear now with the class sizes going up to 26, 28 kids in a room, you'll hear people say, oh, well, I was one of 30 when I grew up. I'm fine. But you didn't have the diversity that you have now, the language barriers that you have now, the IEPs that 504s that you have now. They didn't exist then.
No.
So it's different, you know, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we're taking care of our kids. I had a son when my son was in middle school. He went to the Reeves, and then when he was in middle school, he has ADHD and anxiety. So he was on an IEP from kindergarten on. The Reeves was amazing with him, amazing. Middle school, he started having issues. And I went to an IEP meeting, I'll never forget it, right before Christmas vacation. My husband had to go to work, so we took 2 separate cars. And after the IEP meeting, I sat in my car and I was hysterically crying. And I called him and I said, we have to get him out of there. And I didn't blame the school, I didn't blame the teachers. I blamed the city for not giving the school and the teachers what they needed to help my son.
And they want to bring more students back. They want to make more class, and that's not the wrong thing. I have a special needs son, and he was part of SEAM. And he had some of the greatest teachers in the world. They're still friends with him today, and he's 44 years old. We have some Lucy's too. I always wanted him to stay in Woburn. He never went to his neighborhood school. He went to every other
Right.
school in the city. But they decided to send him to Linfield. He almost had a heart attack, but he said he wanted to go. And off he went, and it was the worst thing Woburn ever did, because Linfield had everything that Woburn didn't
Right.
have. And when he came back, I didn't want any more for him than I wanted for the magna cum laudes.
Right.
But I didn't want any less.
Right. And you'll hear a lot of people, when I say that we haven't invested in our city, you'll hear people.
Bond rating.
Well, that, but look at the new library and look at the new schools, okay? The library didn't happen overnight. People had to fight tooth and nail for that to happen, and it took way too long to become a reality. And when you have adults that can't fit in the children's room, it's not
The old one or the new
the
one?
old one. The old one. The new one's amazing. But to me, you know, in the new schools, it's like, I'll go back to my real estate. When your water heater goes and you replace it, and you go to sell your house isn't worth any more. You're maintaining your home. So when you have a library that has areas that are unacceptable or unsafe, and schools that are crumbling, when you build new ones, you're maintaining your city. Dr. Baldessari said at a school committee meeting that all these kids that are sent out of Woburn, if we invested in our kids in our city and we had our own school for these kids to go to instead of sending them out of Woburn, and we became the destination for the surrounding cities to come to.
We do. Some of them do come
Right.
to our classrooms. Yeah.
Right, but the type of programs that are sent out, it would only be a short matter of time before we started making revenue. So investing and spending the money to keep our kids here, to bring other kids here, but sometimes you have to spend it to make it.
Yep.
So, it's not a matter of creating more revenue. Everyone asks, with all these things you want to do, are you going to raise my taxes? No, if I raise your taxes, I have to raise mine. It's just a matter of...
Reallocation.
Correct.
But
Correct.
who do you think, in your experience, who do you think's getting the money instead of the priority that you want?
I think, a perfect example is when this budget deficit, wasn't covered. We have $30 million sitting in our reserve fund.
Rainy day, and I've seen it rain.
If our schools being having a $2 million shortfall isn't rain, I don't know what is.
No.
And you'll hear, but there were no full-time layoffs. But we didn't replace the retiring teachers, and a loss is a loss.
No, and so different from 20 years ago. If you drove by a school around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there might have been 100 cars parked at the high school, maybe 20 parked at an elementary school. You go by at 10 o'clock in the morning now, and there's 100 cars at the elementary school. Lunch, janitors, maintenance, this specialty, and this specialty. So no, they not only haven't they cut back, they've mandated, a lot of
Right.
them are mandated. And the one thing, I don't want to see them segregate special needs to a particular school. The law is against that. I had a hard time getting them out of the basements. And the federal ADA laws say, they have to be within the population.
Right.
But we can't talk all about schools because everybody will think you should run for the...
Okay, so
What did you find out about DPW?
So my number 2 would be taking care of the people that take care of us. Okay, so
Police,
everybody.
firemen.
If City Hall shut down for a week, we'd be okay. If the DPW and our police department and our fire department, if those people shut down for a week, we crumble. Those are the people at the end of the day that run the city, not the people in City Hall. And we don't take care of them, period. We have, we had a study in 2000 that came out in 2013 that we spent $55,000 for, telling us that our our fire stations were crumbling and they were understaffed. Our firemen had to go through arbitration to get minimum staffing, 3 men on a truck. They had to fight for that.
Yep. That's historical in Woburn, though.
Yeah.
Always. And they would be the first ones to applaud you for trying to change it. But I even asked my husband, why did they make them grovel so? We
Yeah.
lost without them.
Yeah, lost. Look at just the fires in the past few weeks,
Yeah.
okay? And when it comes to the fire stations, it's not a 9-to-5 job. They don't go there for 8 hours and go home. That is their home. They eat there, they sleep there. And I've toured the fire departments. I've seen the rat droppings. I've seen the holes in the wall. I've seen the mold. I've talked to the guys. We are doing so wrong by them.
Oh, now we're going to get a new one.
That's great, but it's going to take roughly 3 years for it to be completed. So my question is, what are we doing now so that when they go back after fighting a fire, they're not going back to
Same old, same old.
a disgusting home, for lack of better terms, because that's what it is to them. That's a great long-term fix, permanent fix, but they deserve something until that's done.
I agree.
As far as our police department, you'll see new hires coming in, but they're replacing the hires, the people going out. We haven't added bodies to our police department in over a decade. Think of Woburn's growth. My other issue with the police department is you have over 75 members, 4 women. The last round of cadets that were hired, there was a Facebook post congratulating them. That's great. Welcome. But what you didn't hear was a woman was skipped for all of those men to make it. And she...
Skipped for appointment or skipped because of testing?
Nope, she was number 1 on the list.
Woo.
Number one, ahead of every single one of them. And she fought it in civil service,
She win?
and she couldn't afford the attorney. Newly married, couldn't afford the attorney. So she called civil service that day and said, I can't afford the attorney. And they said, we don't care, come in. That's how fed up with us as a city they were.
Mm-hmm.
They gave Woburn 48 hours to make her an offer. They did. But what's her life going to be like after everything she put the city through to get where she is?
Unfortunately, as a woman, and I know I'm older than both of you put together, you almost have to know that's going to happen. They still don't give the masculine roles up easy. They just don't. My husband was just operated on by a young, beautiful Puerto Rican girl. I thought she was a candy stripe, but she looked so young. And she had to stand on a stool to operate, to get up to the operating table. And I got to thinking, she must have been in school 25 or 30 years ago. Can you imagine? She was a woman, a girl. If she looks like a candy stripe, and now you can imagine what she looked like then.
Right.
She's tiny, and she was Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how tough a fight that must have been for her? And she succeeded.
Yeah.
And she's good. But, you know, yeah, I'm sorry that happened to her. If I decided to be a fireman person, I'd know what I was in for. And you'd almost have to weigh that. And more power to her for trying.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, she fought it and she got her offer. And, you know, what happens in the future, we don't know. But it shouldn't have happened.
No.
And the fact that we do have, you know, 4 women on the force out of over 75 in a city like this is...
So 50 people think about it, 10 apply, 5 wash out, and the last 2 get zonked.
Well,
we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go.
We have a long way to go.
And as tough as it is for her now, and I'm sorry for that, it was tougher for the women that came before her.
I don't doubt it.
So whatever she does to make it better is going to benefit the girls that come on. And I think they're a little stronger, a little more boisterous than we were. Nobody's more boisterous than we.
So, you know, we have work to do.
Mm-hmm. But so don't they.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I'm not.
Here I come.
Oh, yeah. I agree 200%.
Yeah, I'm here. Look out.
But, you know, on the other hand, when, you know, you have a fire chief, Chief Adgate is great. And when you have him saying, you know, this is what I need, he's been fighting for 2 full-time ambulances forever. And a police chief saying, you know, this is what I need. Again, just like the principals, we put these people in these positions to do a job because we feel that they're the best fit, that they're the most capable. Then we need to let them run their departments. If they tell us we need A, B, C, and D, we have to trust that they know what they're doing. And there's a reason why they need that, you know? I don't feel like we're letting our principals run our school, our chiefs run our departments. We need to trust these people that we've put in these positions. When it comes to our city workers, you know, we have, I think it's two or three guys that work the parks and mow all the lawns in the city.
Yep. And he does a tremendous job.
An amazing job. These guys are some of the hardest workers that...
You don't see them leaning on their shovel, which is a stereotypical
Nope. They were
cartoon.
doing work on my street a few weeks ago. And I mean, just work to the bone.
Yep.
Amazing.
And proud of their work.
Very proud, very proud. And they take pride in it. They should be appreciated for it. They should be supported for it. And if you talk to a lot of them, they're not. They don't feel like they are.
And they've had fields, parks, added to their list.
Oh, yeah,
And I'm not sure they've had helpers
correct,
added to the
correct.
labor force.
Right. Yep. And, let's talk about parks. So we have the new Clap Park. Everyone's thrilled. It's a new park. That's great. It's new, it's pretty, it's shiny. I brought my girls, and the first thing that came to my mind is if a child has any type of disability whatsoever, there is nothing for them to do with this park. Nothing.
And excuse me, I'm a handicap commissioner. I'm chair of and I had the opportunity to review the plans. And while we suggested certain things, it was merely a suggestion, I had the opportunity to go down there Sunday, and I was embarrassed that I didn't ask for a handicap parking place.
Shouldn't have to.
But you have to grab one of those 7
Right.
before you start down the hill.
Right.
Or you're going to get out of your van and you're going to keep on going down.
Right. But I mean, my daughter, my kids have no disabilities. 75% of that structure is rope. Even my kids were having trouble.
Wow.
The swings, you can get away, not the type that's currently at some of the elementary schools where the child needs to be lifted into the swing. Those are great, but it can take 2 to 3 people to put a child in that swing. So if a parent just wants to take their child to the park alone, they make those swings now for the wheelchairs.
Yes.
You're looking at $2,000 to $3,000. I don't think you would find a citizen in this city who would say no. We took out an additional $300,000 for funding for that park, and we had a chance to do it right and make it right for everyone and make it a community staple where everybody could go, and we didn't do it.
I would have put the water pool over there with a bathroom beside it.
Thank you.
And left the playground, because if you promise your kids to take them to the
If that
playground,
water goes on
they're
as a
gonna
parent
go.
and you have a child, they're running to that water. Period.
yeah,
There's a lot of, and when I went there,
they did their best. They took a lot of community input, and I can't knock them for that. But without seeing it and actually
Yeah.
being there, I have a daughter in a wheelchair, and unless she gets to park directly across from that hot top that lets you in, I wouldn't want to see her try to even get out of the car.
Right.
So I parked down below. The granddaughter had to pull me up the last 15 feet.
Yeah.
I was winded.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't a fun part of the park.
No. And, it's my best friend all my life growing up had spina bifida. And I can remember we lived down the street from an elementary school, and I can remember going to the playground and him not being able to do much. And I would hope that now we've come far enough that that's not an issue anymore. And it's not that the structures...
Not until your child is handicapped.
Right, well, I was a lunch monitor last year. So, there are multiple kids with disabilities in my daughter's grade who are at recess with the kids. They shouldn't have to sit at the picnic tables and play with toys. They shouldn't have to.
No.
But that's what they do. And it's not right. So, when I went to the park, I went not as a mayoral candidate, but just as a mom and as a taxpayer and a citizen. And it was new and it was pretty, but when you really step back and look at it, I was disappointed. And the fact that it doesn't have bathrooms.
Especially where the water is right there.
And when you
every
say-
time you flush, that water thing would stop skirting up, and you could tell the kid it's broke, let's go home.
And when you say, there was...
we're at 29 minutes.
Oh, we are. I could talk for...
You can't out-talk me. Many have tried, but few have accomplished. This is your opportunity to tell the people what we haven't discussed, and if they have any questions, how they get in touch with you.
Okay. Well, you can always reach me through email, which is lizpedrini@votepedrini.com. My website is votepedrini.com. I return, a lot of people will say someone from her committee got back to me. If I respond to you, it's me. No one from my committee is responding to you. I'm responding to you.
You are the committee.
I am the committee. I am.
You're the CEO.
I am. I am the CEO of my committee. And you know, when we were coming up with the slogan, people asked me why I was running. You know, it had to be something catchy and something that was going to be on my signs. And it's simple. I want a better Woburn. It's plain and simple. So I look forward to the primary and running for the general. It's going to be interesting.
You should keep notes. I found the whole experience fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating. It
The
is.
reactions you get, the negativity you get.
Yes.
Hubby and I decided because of his position that we're doing it on our own. We took out enough money to cover it, and that was it. And so many contractors and other people would come up and say, "Hey, Bob," and there'd be $500 to $1,000 in their hand. You gotta beat that sucker. Tell her to go get it. And he just let it fall on the ground.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even, you know, that's as good as a sucker punch.
Yep.
So it is a fascinating, and everybody should do it.
It's an experience.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
It is. It is.
And if nothing else, I got more respect from my community than I had had previous. It lasts to this day. I say, Veronica, I didn't do that parking lot. I had to do it because somebody told me to. They think I know everything, and I don't. And they tell me, and now I do.
Right.
Good luck.
Thank you very
I
much.
shall be watching you, young
you.
lady.
Thank
And I
you.
don't want to tell you the pitfalls. You better have sneakers and running shoes.
I do.
When I ran, it was a part-time job. It's not a part-time
No,
job
it's not.
anymore.
It's not. That is not.
No. Thanks for taking time to
Thank
come
you.
in. Nice to meet
You
you.
too.
That's it. I went over time, but she's worth it. Have a good one. That's it for Conversations with Veronica and Liz Pedrini.
There you go. You got it.
Yay!